Hello and welcome to IrishRacing.com. This week I'm joined by an IrishRacing.com regular, Johnny Ward, as our guest on this show, sponsored by William Hill. Johnny, how are you keeping?
I'm very good, Emma. Yeah, and it's good. You're sponsored by William Hill. William Hill have some of the early prices out for Saturday at Punchestown, and particularly one I think that as well we're talking about. So yeah, all good. I think we're really getting into the national hunt scene now. Emma, last weekend was just savage altogether. This weekend isn't far off, and proper national hunt ground. Lots to be thankful for.
Yeah, and it's only recently they brought these races together, the Morgiana and the John Durkin, to kind of make a festival in Punchestown, I suppose. Do you think that's a good thing? I think it worked quite well in Navan last week when they brought 2 days together as well. Do you think, do you enjoy the 2 days together?
Yeah, like and I think with Navan it was a little bit unique in that they're trying to kind of make it like a tourism thing as well, where people can come and stay in Navan and go to the two meetings. And I actually do think that's a good idea. Now Punchestown, obviously it's very easy to get to for most people, or certainly in the east of the country, and they'll probably, I mean, I'm not going to say it's going to be a big swell of tourists staying for the 2 days, but I do like the idea of making little these mini festivals. The days in isolation them are definitely struggling a bit, and I as for Navan last weekend, I thought it was a great idea. You were there; it looked like it was very lively, and I'm absolutely for race courses trying to innovate. I think too many of them just kind of take the money from the media rights and just get on with it. And I think we need crowds at the races.
Yeah, in fairness to Punchestown, I see they've been promoting, I think it's €25 ticket for the 2 days, which is great value in fairness. But we kind of normally kick off the show with a bit of background to our guests. Like I know people probably know you fairly well now from the Monday show, but just a bit of background to yourself and kind of how you got into racing, I suppose, would be good.
Yeah, well, like I was in college in what's I start college in 2000 maybe, and I had absolutely no interest in racing. I remember Bobby Joe came up to the school I was in when he was after winning the national, so I was probably 16 maybe at that stage, and Bobby Joe came into the tech in Montpellier because he was owned locally, and I had absolutely no interest. Like when Cheltenham happened that year, didn't know anything about it, and then in college anyway, I was only doing like 10 hours a week, maybe 12 hours a week in college. And that's actually the maximum number of hours you could go in. And I just loads of free time on my hands, like so much free time. And I was living in Whitehall, and there was a betting shop kind of very near me. Just started going into the betting shop, started talking to people. I remember my first Cheltenham then that I watched was probably 2003, so 20 years ago when Barry Geraghty, the five-timer. And honestly, Emma, I was like, where has this been all my life? This is an unbelievable buzz. Like, and that was at a time when, like, Ireland might win a quarter of the Cheltenham races, maybe, or whatever, something like that, if even, and like Moscow Flyer winning that year. And I was only getting into the sport, and it took me a long time to even get any sort of a handle of it, but I loved it, and it's kind of been like that ever since.
Yeah, so kind of found your own way into it, I suppose, which is a bit different to kind of a lot of people in the sport. You kind of found your love for it, maybe even a bit later than most, but kind of good at it. I suppose. Was the gambling always a big element of it to you? Like I know some people just say they like watching racing, but like was betting always a big part of it for you?
Oh, 100%. Yeah. Like, I mean, I'm not going to lie. Like racing without the gambling aspect of it wouldn't really interest me much. Like if there were no betting on racing, I'd barely watch it. Like I think it's just intrinsically part of the sport, particularly because much of the stuff we watch is fairly mundane. Like most of the races I watch, I don't have a bet on them, but that doesn't mean that it's not kind of in my head, in my subconscious, that betting is part of it. Like I'll always remember the only time I ever backed Rocket Gibraltar was when he was beaten in the Breeders' Cup, and you kind of have these stories down the years of good betting tales and how you got into it. Like, but that particular Cheltenham, like, and I was having a fiver each way in horses, but like, I had a good Cheltenham, and that got me hooked like 100%. As much as it was like admiring the performances, the good horses, and all that, like the betting was a big aspect to it. And without betting, racing would be nothing really, to be honest.
Yeah, yeah, I definitely agree with you on that. But look, we'll drive in and hopefully we can find a few winners anyway. We'll start with Punchestown, I suppose, on Saturday. The Morgiana hurdle. I suppose we'll go straight into the big one. I think it's a little bit disappointing. There's only two trainers represented here, to be honest. I suppose like Stateman probably can't be beaten. Do you agree on that?
At the 5 day stage here, there are only two trainers represented, so it's going to be a problem in the Irish division this year, where we don't have Constitution Hill, who's going to have a lot of kind of, I guess, walkover type races. And I did think it was interesting. Paul Townend said that, I think he was talking yesterday at the races, where he said he didn't feel State Man was at his best. at Cheltenham. That's quite interesting. He looked really laboured on the day. But if you see him at Punchestown, like I kind of fancied Vauban to give him a big race, and Stateman still absolutely demolished him. And like Hammer and Vauban, Honeysuckle, and horses like that, and the likes of Sharjah, like just looking at his most recent kind of victims, like there's nothing wrong with Stateman at all. He's an exceptionally good horse, and yeah, the price is like, I mean, I'm happy to leave it alone, but for obvious reasons, he should win. He never seems to disappoint. The ground will be soft, no problem to him. He's still only 6 as well, Emma. It'd be amazing if they went chasing with him what he could do. But yeah, like I think the odds of 1 to 3 are, I'd prefer to back it than lay it.
Yeah, like do you kind of think that he could get a bit closer to Constitution Hill then, like, or do you think town maybe they're trying to make a few excuses that justify keeping him hurdling maybe?
Yeah, well, I was doing I remember meeting these lads in London, like in a preview, sort of a week and a half before, and I was like a few pints to me, but I offered them. I think my spread was 4.5 lengths for how much Constitution Hill would beat him. So I was miles off. But at the same time, like if you look at Constitution Hill in terms of his overall career, the last day he beat Sharjah by 3 lengths. So maybe, and to be honest, at entry, I thought Constitution Hill was at least, um, he obviously had more to give, but like he didn't look like he would absolutely beat them by 25 lengths if he wanted. So maybe he can get closer. Stefan's a lot better than Sharjah. Maybe he can get closer to him. But I hope the 2 mile division in Ireland isn't just 4 runner races all year.
Yeah, I suppose it's not very exciting as a betting heat anyway, so we'll leave it at that. I suppose like Statement has to be winning that really if he's showing his true form. The 123 then is a novice chase, grade two race. This is a really interesting contest, I thought. A lot of good horses in there. Flowing Porter going right-handed for the first time in 2 years. Do you think maybe with a bit more age and maturity he can kind of adapt to going the other way?
It's hard to know. Like you are taking a bit of a chance, and I know he's been put in favourite here. But he's 8 going on 9. I think the fact that the Broadway boy form has worked out so well is definitely kind of a plus for him. But as you mentioned, going this way is a question mark. Fordale Fury, I thought at Galway, like we're going to see Gaelic Warrior this weekend, and he obviously was second on Punchestown. Thought he was very good at Galway. I think he should confirm that form over Favre Chantou. But the reason I just mentioned Hills are at just looking here, Emma, Hills are often the first to price these races, the only ones up. I do think 7 to 1 Calixios is very chancy here because, like, for me, if Henry de Bromhead is tackling 3 miles this horse, he would have had plenty of other sort of opportunities. I think it's quite interesting. He beat Cool Survivor neck, but we all know he should have beaten him a lot more than that at Limerick. He made a terrible mistake at the last and survived it. Like this horse is a very good hurdler. Obviously won the Triumph. He's only a 6-year-old as well, like Stateman. And if Henry de Bromhead thinks he's worth a go at this trip, he won over 2-3 the last day. Would definitely have gotten 2-4, 2-5 at Limerick. I'd be happy enough to chance him 7 to 1, albeit in a cracking race.
Yeah, I'd have to say I agree with you there. Like Flooring Porter, obviously a brilliant horse, but I couldn't really be backing him going this way. Just there's so many questions about him. Like quick silly ass, like you said. I think he missed all the last year, didn't he? But like he was a very good one of the Triumph Hurdle. I thought he was very good at Limerick as well after a long break and made an awful mistake at the last and rallied really well. His jumping was pretty good as well, I thought, for a horse first time over fences. But like it's quite a deep race, all right. 7 to 1 looks a good price for him. Like Aphrodite Fury was I thought he was good on chasing debut. Obviously maybe a little bit underrated last year. He ran quite well in the stairs or the Albert Bartlett, sorry. Sandor Clegane's obviously an interesting one then as well, like trying 3 miles over fences, probably what he really wants, but probably be hard enough to break his maiden tag over fences in this kind of race. So I was kind of with you there. Quick City at around 7 to 1 looks a fairly good proposition there. We'll go back a bit now. It is just being a chase, probably worth mentioning. Like you were saying, Gaelic Warrior making his debut over fences. Is he kind of one that excites you for the novice scene this year?
Oh, definitely, Emma. Like, and to be fair to, I mentioned a couple of the horses there that we will see in the like Gaelic Warrior. Gaelic Warrior would be favourite if he ran in this race, even though obviously he lacks chase experience. But just you were at Willie's for the stable tour. Like, I did think it was quite interesting the way he spoke about the horse. He's he's a horse that obviously sort of came off the flat and just confirmed that yeah he's by the same sire as Calixios, well Maxios, and I wasn't sure like when he went to Punchestown last year, I laid him on the day. I wasn't sure he'd be in love with the 3 miles. I remember when he came into the straight thinking like I have a real good chance here, and he just kind of came back on the bridle very quickly. And I was like, geez, this horse could be a real absolute tool over 3 miles. Now, the last I looked, he was a general 6-1 for the Brown Advisory, and I know that this the Stain Novice Chase division this year is strong, but geez, I honestly I'd be all over that. I think if he's anyway impressive here, if he jumps well, he looks brilliant for Cheltenham. I know he's been beaten a couple of times at Cheltenham, but he handles it no problem. I thought he was a revelation at Punchestown, and I'm really looking forward to seeing him. And it's a measure of this race, like Cool Survivor, who's a serious horse in his own right. I know the way you're thinking. You can both get them at 6 or 7 to 1.
Yeah, yeah, he looks the right one, and Willie, like you were saying, Willie sounds pretty keen on him. You buy Maxios as well, like Quick City, like he's still only a 5-year-old, which is kind of mad. I
Mm.
suppose he kind of just feels like he's been around for a long time, but not that long ago, I suppose he ran in the Boodles, when he was the big plot job at the time. Before we move on from Punchestown, was there anything else that you kind of fancied on the card, or will we drive on into the English racing?
Yeah, well, nothing major from a sort of punting perspective at the moment, but I do think the bumper is going to be quite hot as well. Just looking at, I see the enabler is running who was second at Thurles, and Scommel Bawn as well is a very interesting horse going forward. So I kind of I'll probably keep the powder dry a little bit in the handicaps. They're quite tough at Punchestown. It's a cracking card.
Yeah, perfect. We'll drive on to the English racing. I thought the most interesting storyline from all of the English racing at the weekend was Harry Cobden going to Ascot instead of going to ride Brave Man's Game in this Betfair chase. What did you make of that? Like, I mean, surely if Gallopin Des Champs was running in Haydock, Paul Townend's not going to be staying in Punchestown.
Yeah, just having a check here now. So how many rides did he pick up? One, two, three, four. And to be fair, Nichols has said, you got to ride for this owner, yada yada. I have to say, like Paul Nichols, he's not everyone's cup of tea. I think it's fair to say, but I find him brilliant in the media. Any conversations I've had with him, he's been very refreshing to deal with, and he's generally, as far as I'm concerned, anyway, he's very honest. I mean, if you're going to slag the ride Brave Man's Game got the last day, I just don't see it. Like the horse he wasn't race fit. He travelled like the best horse in the race. He was touched off. He's been trained for the King George. So I also think Harry Cobden was exceptionally good the way he dealt with it in the media. He spoke. He was measured. He said, of course I want to ride the horse, but it is what it is. And I'll be going to Ascot to get some good rides as well. So it's a fascinating subplot to the weekend. And Brave Man's Game now doesn't have Harry Cobden, and it's probably going to be odds on at Haydock.
Yeah, so he's probably going to take off here a shade of odds on. I was probably a little, maybe slightly surprised to see him running back here again so quickly. I thought he might go straight to the King George after. I don't think he was disgraced or anything behind Gentleman's Game, and like I agree with you, I don't think you can blame that right at all. I think he was probably holding on to nothing, which made people think that maybe he should have kicked on. But I'd say he was just on a tired horse, and he probably knew it. But Protectorat's probably no joke here either. Won this race very well last year. Obviously, didn't have a horse like Brave Man's Game to contend with. Ground is probably like in Haydock terms, it's going to be quite good. Normally it's quite a slog here, but do you think it's going to be kind of straight sailing for Brave Man's Game, or would you think the Skeleton Horse can give him a bit of a race?
Yeah, like the betting out from earlier in the week has gone quite favourable to Brave Man's Game. Obviously, there was a chance that Shishkin could run here. So now I'd be wary of calling it a two-horse race because like Royal Pagaya's best wouldn't be out of it. But just the way the ground has dried out, I think Brave Man's Game should take plenty of beating. Like to be fair, when they clashed at Cheltenham, he was well ahead of Protectorat, who's also had a wind operation. And when he won this race last year, obviously, the Aplutar just bombed out altogether. So I think with the benefit of a run behind him, I think he did all bar win at Weatherby. And in fairness, like he was just you could visibly see the horse was getting tired at the last. He wasn't hard trained like say Star for a race last weekend. He was hard. He's going to be hard trained for the King George, but this in the intermediary sort of role between Weatherby and the King George. I simply think he's a better horse. He's 6 pounds better than him. He's race fit. I'd have no problem backing him in a shade of odds on.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with you there. I'd find it hard to back anything against him in a way. But look, we'll go back in the cards to the graduation chase. There's a few Irish runners through the day, and Gala Neil takes his chance here for Willie Mullins. Patrick gets to ride. This I found this race very hard. Like it's kind of like Gala Neil is rated far superior to everything in the field, but it's just a 2 mile five is the question. But I think you can probably say it's a question for plenty others in the field as well. So what do you think in it? Do you think is it just a case of really going over to try and get a run into him, or is this kind of a target race?
Yeah, like I'm a bit like you, Emma. Like Willie's a couple of runners in the cards, that would be fairly out of kilter with his general way of training, running in a stable debutant in a handicap and running Guy or Duménil here. But to be honest, like the trip wouldn't overly worry me. You look at his performances last year in the Drinmore, the horses he had him behind, 14 lengths clear of Banbridge when he was second to Mighty Thomas. That's over even lesser trip than this. Then he wins. He won at Leopardstown. He's impressive that day over 3 miles. And I know, obviously, he stays very well, but it will be testing off. It's nearly 2-6. I actually could see him going off odds on. Like, I think, he'd be probably fairly superior to the horses in this race. And he's, at the moment, he's 11-8 with Hills. It's interesting that he's running the race, but I'd have no issues with him being fit enough. And if he runs his race, he wins. So for me, he's an odds on shot.
Yeah, I was kind of swaying towards him, I suppose, in the end, because it's just going to be hard for these horses to compete with him. I think he's just got so much experience. Like you were saying, he kind of competes in kind of grade one races, Irish nationals. Like a lot of these are kind of new to fences and just aren't in the same class as him. So even stepping down in trip, like you said, he should be very, very hard to beat. Just we'll talk about the stairs handicap hurdle, like you said. Willie Mullins has a debutant here, which I thought was a very, very interesting one. Just the fact that it's running for Willie Mullins in the first place. A horse at a profile like that wouldn't be your typical kind of Mullins recruit. And of course, Emmett has a horse, Slate Lane. I think he's going for a 5 time wins. I've done most of his winning in the UK for Emmett and Paul Byrne. Hasn't been beaten since he joined the yard. Did you have a strong opinion on this one?
I don't know. Like for me, this is the race that like has my head been scratched more than anything. Like Brian Hayes is riding fine margin. Brian Hayes, who frequently obviously rides for Paul Byrne and Emmett Mullins as well. And Emmett then has Slate Lane in the race, who to be fair was ridden the last twice this year by Donna Myler and then Richie McLernan. Um, I don't know if you saw his race last in. Emmett Newton Abbott, but like he was
Mm.
very, very keen, and he obviously still won, but he went up a stone. So I'm not going to lie. I find him a hard horse to assess. He's running on more testing ground here, and probably will have to relax a little bit. But probably is a bit of a blank canvas. But like fine margin for me. If he were trained by Emmett Mullins rather than Willie Mullins, would he be double figures in the betting? I don't see it. Like he's left from a small trainer who I don't know much about. I don't think he's had a winner yet. Only a handful of runners joined Willie. I don't know what the logic is coming over here because it's very unlike Willie. But for me, I'm intrigued by it all, and in a completely mug sense, I'm going to back both the Irish horses because I just can't leave it behind that the two of these. And I know Crambo's owner has been very bullish about his horse going forward, but I just think the whole fine margin thing has me really intrigued.
Yeah, the fine margin thing, I just kind of like you. I can't really wrap my head around it too much. Like, had a few runs for Matt Daly. I think rated about 115 in Ireland. Obviously, rated a bit higher over in the UK. But I mean, a horse like that isn't the kind of horse that normally you see getting recruited to Willie Mullins. The only connection you can see is that Patrick and Danny have both ridden the horse now, unless they thought there was plenty improvement in him or something like that. But like you said, if it was running for Emmett, people might be fancying it a bit more, like 10 to 1. Like you said, it's just not really something that Willie normally does, is take a horse like this over in a handicap. But yeah,
You on about the betting earlier, Emma, like racing and betting. Like the betting in this race for me is nearly more interesting than the race itself. Like what is going to go on here? Because Emmett and Willie both bringing horses over that are so like intriguing in their own right. And in fairness, fine margin. The run behind Rian at Thurles, Ivan was third that day. He was kind of eye catching. Then he that was kind of over 2.5. So maybe over this trip he'll improve a bit further. Like on the face of it, his mark is no gimme at all. But like the market here, what will the market be like about Slate Lane, who even now is still quite hard to assess. And then you've Willie with this horse off a trainer who hasn't had a winner yet. So there's so much to talk about.
yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. I suppose it's very hard to predict it now, though. Like it's but just one horse I wanted to even mention to in this one was M and Tom for Adam King. I just thought off a mark like this was once quite a classy horse, right in the mid 150s, kind of in his prime. A 9-year-old now, obviously past it, but he's been in great form since joining Adam King. First on stable debut and second last time out, so he'll come on for that run as well. About 14 to 1. Like at off a mark like this, you'd think he should be well able to be competitive, as long as the Irish pair don't show up and do something absolutely crazy, which I wouldn't be totally be surprised by either. But Look, we'll move on to Ascot. I suppose that's a very tricky one to assess. We'll go to Ascot where Harry Cobden is going to take the four wides, like you said. So what's the most interesting race of today? That the 1965 chase where Shishkin and Pictori come to blows again. Shishkin obviously has form over Pictori in the past, but he's wearing the first time cheek pieces here, which I thought was a little bit interesting that Nicky would kind of revert to them so early in the season. Like, you might think he might keep them for a bigger race. Would that put you off Shishkin at all?
I don't know, like Shishkin and put me off Shishkin. I can't get the horse right, Emma. Like, I thought at Cheltenham last year, he kind of had everything in his favour. Sort of ran a bit in snatches, didn't win. And then at Aintree, I'm like, I don't know if this horse wants this trip. I don't know what to expect, really. I think I don't know what price he went in running when he was sort of off the bridle 2 out, but then ends up winning kind of snugly. You look earlier on in the season and sort of last year, it was very disappointed behind Edward Stone, having pulled up at Cheltenham. When that was probably the first day I backed Shishkin, and I was like, never again. I couldn't see him being beaten that day behind Onogamine. He was pulled up straight away. So I was like, I'm not backing this horse again. I had too much money on him that day and never went a yard. He's been very in and out since. Now the cheek piece are on. Henderson is kind of saying he wants this trip all along. If I back Pictori, Shishkin will win. So I honestly don't know what to expect from the horse. 9 gone on 10.
Yeah, look, I definitely couldn't be backing Shishkin at that price anyway. Like, he's not really, like you said, he's not really one like I can rely on either. Like last year, he was beaten a country mile in the Tingle Creek first time out. Didn't look like he was kind of in love with racing then, but he kind of came coming in and out and running in snatches, like you were saying. The cheek pieces would be a bit of an off putter for me. Like, is he just not showing something at home? I don't know why you put them on already first start of the season. Like, I thought you might keep them for a bigger day or something. Like, maybe he's just gone very lazy at home, which would probably put fitness questions in your mind as well. Like, Pictori probably shouldn't be beating him, but if there's anything kind of lacking from Shishkin, like he's a very good grade two horse, I suppose, Pictori. So he'd be there to pick up the pieces, and I'm sure Harry Cobden isn't going there for no reason. So they must fancy their chances some bit anyway. But we'll have a look at the 205 as well, the Carl Hurdle. Goshen was a brilliant winner this last year. Talking about horses you can't rely on, is he another one for you?
Well, yeah, like in fairness at his best, I mean, obviously he bombed out at Newmarket, but like on his day and when he has sort of, I guess when he's going the right way and all of that, he's still a very good horse. As you mentioned, beat Bruno up a storm the race last year, was a 6-5 favourite. I wouldn't be saying like at 7 years of age. I know he's very in and out, but I wouldn't be saying he's done at the game as well. Fascinating race. So Theatre Glory, obviously the mare coming into it as well. And in fairness for her, she is quite reliable as well. And then So Royale was a horse like he's 11 going on 12. There's so much time for that horse, and be it chasing or hurdling, he still has plenty of ability. It's a really, really tricky one. I thought him. It's fascinating. One of these races again, I'm happily able to watch.
Yeah, I'd agree with you there. Look, Goshen, if he gets it right, he should be winning. Really, he has form over Theatre Glory in the past. Look, she's a progressive looking mare. But yeah, I'd be happy enough to leave this go as well. Conditions seem to be in his favor, is what you could say about him. Like, in fairness to the horse, I kind of agree with you. Like, he's probably being pigeonholed as a horse who does everything wrong. But in fairness, like, he doesn't like going right left-handed, sorry. And he gets ran left-handed enough, and he doesn't like jumping fences, and when things go right for him, I suppose he's very good, is what I'm trying to say. What would worry me is he ran quite poorly last time in the Cesaro, which he was quite fancy for that, wasn't he? But look, different code here, so I'd like to see him get back to some bit of form anyway. But we'll dive on to Sunday's racing anyway. Punchestown, the big one, the John Durkin Chase. Galopin Des Champs faces off with his conqueror from Punchestown at the Spring Festival last year, Fast or Slow. But it's quite a strong field. Galopin Des Champs about 4 to 9 early with William Hill. Do you think that's a fair enough price, or is Fast or Slow being a bit underrated here?
I don't really think he is. Like when he sort of debuted this time last year, he was probably more getting a handicap mark and um, ended up running 21 links behind Galvin Deschamps' season return. But like, I don't know, just in light of like the Troytown last weekend and Willie Mullins having 5 of the 6 here with Martin Brassel having the other in the signature race the Sunday, like we're going and Gordon Elliott not having a run at all. We're getting back to the question of dominance here. But to be fair with Gallop and Deschamps, Emma, what price is he with Hills? 4 to 9. You might get 1 to 2. I wouldn't really crab that price. I think this horse has been next to flawless. Apart from the day he obviously was desperately unlucky at Cheltenham, and when he was second to Fast or Slow. But like Punchestown for me, the one rule I'd have at Punchestown is be very wary of backing horses odds on who ran at Cheltenham. And he, to me, he probably didn't perform at his best on the day. I was giving Fast or Slow a chance. I put him up. I put him up in Punchestown. I put him up in Cheltenham, thinking like that's, he need a bit of a chance. But just because there's always a chance in these races that the horses who are trained for Cheltenham underperform. And I think Galopin de Champs will come back to his something like his best here, 4 to 9 for me. I really can't see him being beaten. Blue Lord, I'd give a bit of a mention to. I was gutted last year when they ran. I backed this horse for the Ryanair. I was gutted that they went back to Champion Chase route, or sorry, the other way around. I was gutted that they went the Ryanair when I'm back for the Champion Chase. But be interested to see how he gets on. He's still a very good horse in his day, and obviously two stablemates, no mugs as well. Statler, appreciate and a steering for Lawrence, but Galopin de Champs, it should be straightforward enough. Paul Town will keep it simple, and I imagine he'll pretty much make all.
Yeah, he is. Look, it's kind of hard to judge, I suppose, for me anyway. Kind of, I suppose, like I think Gallop in the Champ is obviously the best horse in the race, rated far superior to Fast or Slow. Wasn't his best in Punchestown, but maybe the slight question is like how much does a Gold Cup like that take out of a horse? Maybe. But like if he is at his best, he should be winning it. Fast or Slow were very good, but like you said, he ran in this last year. Kind of hard to draw too many conclusions from that. I think it was his first start over fences in Ireland. He had won over fences in France. Obviously, he was 66 to 1 outside of that day. Comes into today, totally different profile. A deep looking race, but Gallop. If it's the Gallop on Deschamps, we know showing up here, he should be winning it. So excited to see him coming back. Anyway, you're going to be in Cork for the day. I think you won't be there to see him.
Yeah, going to Mallow for racing TV. So it's always great though when you're at like I have a terrible attention span at the best of times. So it's always great when you have like something like that on in the background, so people be watching it. Like I mean, and the beauty of like there's so much Irish racing at the moment. But when you have a Sunday with the two meetings on, and like Cork isn't shabby at all. The Cork meet isn't bad, and we're going to see some nice horses there. But like, yeah, I'm delighted that Punchtown's on as well.
Yeah, and another big race in Punchestown then, the 155 Grade 2 Novice Chase, over 2 miles. Small enough field for this one, but a nice mix of yards being represented. Interesting to see Lucid Dreams returning quite quickly. He's done a lot of running recently, but the yards think a lot of him. Imagine another interesting one. I think Gordon mentioned that he could be maybe a Drinmore horse in the future. Seemed to like him. And Uncle Phil for Willie Mullins. The other two seem like relative outsiders, but who would be our fancy here? We've no prices yet, obviously.
Yeah, I'd be very sweet on Imagine him. And like, I think there's a bit of a mighty Potter about him in terms of the season ahead for him. I'm not going to say he's going to be that good, and I know he sort of ran into defeat more times than not over hurdles. But like that performance at Fairyhouse the last day, I thought that was very, very good. I know the way you're thinking, Pinkerton, Sandra Clagan, like this was good. And what was more as well, he was very, very strong in the market. Very strong in the market. He looked like he knew his job very well. Um, he also said after the race, Gordon, that I thought he might need the run a little bit. Like, it's good to see, as you say, Nigel Slevin having a runner. Lucid Dreams has been a great stick for John Ryan. John Ryan runs his horse a lot, but this horse is he's definitely standing up to the breach. He's won 3 of his last 4. I think he's going to come unstuck here. With Imagine for me, I definitely don't think Willie has his stars out. Yes, Uncle Phil is a good horse. He's no Imagine, and I'd be very sweet and Imagine here in this, to be honest.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you there. He kind of gives the feeling maybe of one who could actually be a Grade 1 horse, whereas the rest of these probably would just fall short of
One
that
hundred
level. Like
percent.
Lucid Dreams, kind of. I know John Wayne kind of thought of him maybe as a Grade 1 horse, but I probably have questions about him now. Like he's a very good horse, but he's an 8 year old. He's done plenty of running, and I'd say he'll just probably fall a bit short. Meaning a horse like Imagine, I don't think 2 miles will really be his trip either. I'd say Imagine probably be better even stepping up to 2.5, but I'd say he
Mm.
should have the class to do this as well. So I'd be with you there. I'm not sure what kind of price he'll open up at now, but I presume he'll be a short enough favourite in this. Especially Gordon spoke quite favourably about him during the week at his media morning. So it looks like an exciting one to follow for the year ahead as well. Before we kind of finish up, anything else maybe in Cork or Punchestown on Sunday that caught your eye, or you kind of it's been kind of tough enough 2 days, I think.
Yeah, like to be honest, there's so much racing. I haven't really had time to go through everything this morning, but do keep an eye out for Balquito, who's running in Punchestown earlier on the card. Like Barry Connell's horses have been pretty sharp, but I think we were both there the day in Mallow when his horse was touched off in the National. And Balquito's coming back off a layoff here, but he's returning here over hurdles with Michael O'Sullivan in the plate, running off 106. Now, he absolutely bolted up in a chase off 106 in February of last year. And then won again, beat Sir Bob. Obviously, that's topical form at Limerick off 116. He's coming off a little absence, but just keep an eye out for him in the betting in a good race, taking on the likes of Millstream Lady and that. But cracking racing this weekend, all told.
Yeah, an interesting one there. And who'll be your nap of the weekend?
My nap of the weekend would be Imagine, actually. Yeah, I again, like, we're trying to assess prices here. I couldn't agree more. Chip. Horse will probably step up and trip. Will definitely be running grade ones this season, and I think it's way more upside than the rest of those horses, particularly with Willie not having a stable start in it.
Yeah, looks like an exciting one, definitely, of the novices to come out this weekend. I'll give Hador as my nap, maybe. He's running in Punchestown tomorrow. If he's only a 6-year-old, I'd say he's probably well capable of winning off this mark still. They really fancied him to win at the Punchestown Festival last year. He fell that day, but there doesn't look to be a whole lot of pace in the race. And I'd say if he got out in front, he could run riot under Jack Foley. Maybe a little bit disappointing that Paul Townend's not riding him, but maybe they're just trying to spread the rides out. He's not riding anything else in the race either. So I'd very fancy him now. I think he's around 11-4 or something like that. So that'll be my one. But look, Johnny, thanks a million for coming on. And if you enjoyed the show, make sure to like and subscribe. And if you're having a bet, make sure to gamble responsibly as well.